ARRL is recording. Everyone's not here yet, but hopefully they will show up momentarily. Welcome everyone to the July meeting of the Forsyth Amateur Radio Club. My name's Sam Poindexter, NI4TG. I miss the days when we would go around the room and introduce ourselves. We don't have that available to us on Zoom. If you would, mute your microphones until you're ready to speak. And that way, if something goes off in the background, that will be muted. I would encourage you to read the current newsletter if you've not done so. Don did a great job on the newsletter this month, as usual, but this month is, it looks like an excellent job and a standout. To get started, Kent, our treasurer, if you would give us an update on the finances, please, sir.
Be happy to. As of about 4 o'clock this afternoon, our current balance is $3,042.84, with the only major expense got coming up is the multiple year web hosting that I haven't gotten an invoice from Jim yet on that. So as I get that from him, we'll get paid. We still have some dues dribbling in. Today, I think I sent Stacy $85 worth of dues, or $75 worth of dues, or something like that. So so we still got a little bit of money coming in, but actually we're, as far as money goes, right now we're ahead of our budget. So so things are looking good right now since we didn't have the major field day expense this year.
Thank you, Kent. Appreciate that. Harlan, you want to give us Oxcom ARRL's report? Harlan, I know you're with us. I saw you. Harlan Colbert, W1HRC. Or are you on the phone?
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I had to reset the mic. Well, let's see. As everybody knows, COVID's still with us here in North Carolina. The rates have gone insanely high. We're up to over 3,500 cases and 40 deaths. And in that wonderful graph that I looked at earlier this evening is almost vertical. It is a very ugly looking graph. Anyway, with that said, we expect to still remain in at least phase 2, if not drop back a little bit here once the governor makes his decision. We'll have to see which direction the gentleman goes. As far as Oxcom goes right now, we still have Tour of Tanglewood on tap for September. That's still scheduled. However, I doubt seriously it will actually occur, but we do want people to keep that on their calendar and stay available for it should things open up and we have it. This Thursday night at 8 o'clock, not 8:30, we will have the Zoom training. We're going to cover the ARRL's message form and get people familiar with that. We are also going to cover a couple other ICS forms in that hour period that folks need to know. And so that again is on the Zoom platform. The information is in the newsletter, and I encourage everybody to attend and that training. We will not have an on-air net Thursday night due to that. Anyway, that's it. We're just hanging in there. Hope everybody's still being safe, wearing your mask.
Thank you, Harlan. Appreciate that. I don't see Dale with us tonight yet. Dale, are you there somewhere? Have I missed you? Okay, well, we will get a repeater report from Dale toward the end of the night if he shows up. And it looks like Henry's not here. Stacy, you or Harold want to give us a follow-up for field day? Henry was going to go through the instructions tonight for submitting QSOs if people had not done so. Also, I was looking for some follow-up with regard to some numbers, preliminary numbers. So Stacy, do you or Harold want to do that?
Well, I can run us through the data entry if you need me to. I don't have the numbers right now because I thought Henry was going to do that. But let me share my screen here. Find the right screen. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
If you go to https://field-day field-day.arrl.org/fd entry.php, you should come up with this this screen right here. Come down here to data entry. Now I've already submitted mine. So what's going to happen when you click it though is you're going to come up to this. You're going to put in your call. You didn't have a go to station. We didn't have a go to station this year. North Carolina. Make sure you type in Forsyth ARRL into this line right here. It's listed in there, so if you just start typing Forsyth, it should pop up. You got your number of participants, number of transmitters. You can do home or emergency, or commercial or emergency power here. Most of us are probably 150 watts or under. That's this one right here. That gives you a 2x multiplier. And down here is where you put in your bonus points. All right. I only had the W1AW field day message. That was the bulletin. And then this is where you browse and upload the file with the field day message. If you have any of these other bonuses, go ahead and check it and submit the proof under the browse button. Down here, this is where you're going to bring in your Cabrillo file. You want to export the Cabrillo file from N1MM or whatever your logging program you used is. You're going to browse and upload it here. But then over here, what you want to do is you need to put in your number of QSOs and the power used for each band. You have to do this part. Okay, you can do that, I believe, by looking at your QSO summary under your logging program. Once you're done with that, you're going to skip this. This is for the go to station. You're going to put in your name, your call sign, your email address, and submit entry. It's very easy. Once it's submitted, if you want to make a correction, you just come up here. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's a different page. But when you get your confirmation page, if you have a correction, you have until I think it's like July 28th. You can come back with that link. They're going to email you a copy of your score summary and your points, your total points. And on there, there'll be a link where you can come back here and make any adjustments you need until, like I said, I think it's the 28th that you can make any corrections, and then that's when they close it out and tally everyone up. But that's it. Oh, and when you get your confirmation email, if you could forward that to fieldday@w4nc.com, we're kind of collecting all those so we can get kind of a feel points-wise how we did. And there we go. That's it.
Thank you, Stacy. I thought I heard Henry say at one or Harold, maybe it was Harold said at the technical talk meeting Wednesday, didn't we have 14,000 points?
No, that was me, but I threw away the paper that was written down on. So I was kind of hoping Henry still had it.
Well, that,
Sam, I think we've exceeded what we did last year already.
right. Well, that would be over 14,000 points. So that's good. If you didn't participate in field day in the Zoom meeting that we had, then you really missed something. If you did participate on your own and you haven't sent your login yet, I would encourage you to get your login so that the club can get credit for that. We've had some exciting contests lately, 13 colonies. I know a lot of you participated in that, the AIRU contest this past weekend, and of course field day. And I really appreciate Henry and Stacy and Harold doing all the work to get our N1MM logs into a central location, and all the work that they did. That was really great. Okay, I'm proud tonight to introduce Marv Hoffman, WA4NC. Marv is the North Carolina section manager with the ARRL. Marv lives up near Boone. He's got a couple of repeaters. He's active in Oxcom areas, and he has an extensive resume. If you look at the newsletter this month, Marv has really got an extensive resume and a lot of experience, and we really look forward to Marv's presentation tonight. So Marv, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, again, I am going to do an audio check. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the invitation to visit with you. I was on your meeting 2 months ago when you had a visit with Riley Hollingsworth, but all I got to do that time was to say hello. But I'm happy to say hello again and to give a little bit of a presentation about some of the issues affecting ARRL, North Carolina ARRL, and even ham radio in general. So at this time, I'm going to attempt to put my PowerPoint up, and I think you have that now?
Yes.
Okay, let me take it full screen now. Okay, so this is my presentation tonight. And again, thank you for the privilege of being with you. I won't belabor my background. I'm embarrassed by what was in the newsletter, and I've tried to highlight some of the most important things. I've been a ham for 27 years. I was privileged to be the president of the Watauga Amateur Radio Club, and after 5 years, I stepped down from that, and they made me a life member. I've got a lot of experience in public safety, a little bit of the ham background. Like a number of people, I started out as a technician. I am not a skilled code operator, but I did get up to 13 words per minute at the Raleigh Ham Fest. Theory has not been a problem. I passed the advanced right away once I got to 13 words per minute, and then I upgraded to extra in year 2000. I'm very active also with shares, which is a part of the North Carolina Oxcom program, and some of you may know about that, and if you want to know more about it, I'll be happy to answer that question at the end of the presentation. Back a number of years ago, almost 50 years ago, I got the opportunity to go to the FCC office in Atlanta, Georgia, and take my first class radio telephone operator license, and that was a challenge. Actually, I thought the second class was more of a challenge, but the practical difficulty in taking the first class at that time was the questions had a number of vector scope illustrations with questions like this TV transmitter is transmitting a signal that is black going to gray to white. It's white going to gray to black. It is black, it is white, and never having been in a TV transmitter master control station, I said, oh gee. Anyway, I did get through it. And as was pointed out, we have a number of repeaters up here. So I'm into MCOM, I'm into club building, and I'm into the tech side, maintaining some repeaters. But that's not what you want to know about. That's just my background. What we're going to talk about tonight, though, is where will ham radio be in 10 years? Because that is a subject of a great deal of concern. When I visit with clubs across the state, and I've done some in person before the corona lockdown and by video since the quarantine rules, I have to say that, like most clubs, our club has also a problem with a number of our members being older. I would say right now, from going to various club meetings, the average age of many of the members of the clubs is 65 or more. And that's a real challenge, because I would say 10 years from now, those that are in their 70s probably won't be active. Although I did know Wendell, what was Wendell's last name? W4AJT, and he stayed active on the Tar Heel net until he was 100. And in fact, in September, I'm going to visit with one of our hams down around Shelby, who will celebrate his 101st birthday, and go there to his long-term care facility and give him a certificate congratulating him on his longevity. But many of our hams, and in fact, that's another part of what I do as section manager. Since becoming section manager April 1, I have processed 20 silent key messages to ARRL headquarters asking for the name and call sign of the ham who had passed away to be listed in QST. So I'm sure there are other hams who have passed away that I never knew about. But if your club, if you know of a ham that you would like to have recognized in QST, send me a message. I need a link to the obituary noting that the individual has actually passed away. And if I get the name, call sign, and the link to the obituary, I take care of that, process it through ARRL. That's one of the things that, in fact, I did one yesterday, but that's part of what the job entails. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what the job entails, but I have to get back on the main topic. Where will amateur radio be in 10 years? Because of aging and because of other demographic trends. So I have to give you, by ARRL policy, I have to say that I cannot speak for the ARRL board. I am not an ARRL board member. Only the ARRL president can speak for the board. So section managers, when they speak, they talk about working with clubs, with VE teams, with nets, hamfests, but the section managers do not make or have a formal voice in making ARRL policy. So here's where the talk is going to begin. So my factoid number one, slide number one, there are about 750,000 hams in the United States. And each day there is a new high that is reached. There have never been more hams alive than there are today. There's never been more license holders than there are today. Of those 750,000 hams in the United States, ARRL has about 150,000 members. Now, one of the big concerns of the ARRL board is that the ARRL is losing members. And there's some interesting speculation as to why that is. Some of it may be aging, some of it may be other reasons that we're going to touch on. So of the 150,000 ARRL members, or I even should say going back to the 750,000, there are 20,000 licensed hams in North Carolina. And of those 20,000, 4,500, give or take a few, belong to the ARRL. So here's the question. Of the 750,000, only 20% of those hams belong to the ARRL. And in North Carolina, about 25% of the hams in North Carolina belong to the ARRL. Now that's a problem, and I'll explain why that's a problem in just a moment. They'd like to have more. So factoid number 2, when you look at the data from the FCC, 50% of all the hams in the United States are technicians. I have nothing against technicians. Some of my best friends are technicians, and I encourage them almost to the point of losing their friendship to encourage them to upgrade, but they don't. Some don't want to upgrade. But 50% of all the hams are now technicians. And coming to the next point, ARRL did a survey in 2017, and they sent a mail questionnaire to the hams that were licensed in 2017. 53% of those new hams in 2017 had gotten technician licenses. Now, if that trend holds true, 53, maybe 54 each year, and the number of older hams dies off, diminishes because of aging, increasingly it's going to be true that ham radio becomes more and more focused on technician class licensees. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's a problem in that technicians may have different interests than the older hams. So in 2018, the ARRL did a follow-up survey of those people in 2017 that got newly licensed. And one of the more interesting things that they found was that half of the technicians licensed in 2017 had not gotten on the air in the first year they held a license. So that's really surprising. Now, I ask sometimes, why did somebody get a license if they didn't ever want to use it? And we'll come to that answer in just a second. But so half of these new hams got a license, but they're not really active hams. So factoid number 3, a major finding in the 2017 survey was that new technicians said the reason they got a license was because they wanted to be involved with emergency communications. And they made comments very often that they had bought a low-cost portable radio, maybe a Bofang or whatever, and put it in a drawer just in case they might need it, but they never got on the air. They never got socialized. They never got plugged into a club or into enjoying ham radio, as I suspect most of us tonight have a great passion for ham radio and have been in it for 20, 30, 40 years or more. So, factoid number 4, ARRL wants more members. So one of the things, and I don't know whether this is showing up very well on the side where my picture is, but I have in my hand a copy of On the Air. And On the Air is a new publication that ARRL started producing on a bi-monthly basis in January. A number of people on those surveys said, you know, I got a QST. Somebody showed me a QST. And even members at Hamfest have come up and said to Bud Hipsley or Bill Maureen or Carl Bowman, and not just in North Carolina, but throughout the country, a number of hams have said, you know, QST really doesn't do much for me. It's too oriented towards contesting, or it's too oriented towards digital projects. It's talking about relatively expensive equipment that I don't have money for in my life station at this particular time to buy, you know, this radio or that radio. So one of the things that ARRL did was they started producing this new magazine in January, and there's 3 issues that have been produced so far, called On the Air. And I passed around a couple of copies at a coffee session before we were locked down. And a number of our hams who, I've got one guy, K2SD, who said, I've been a ham for 54 years, and I found this particular On the Air magazine very helpful and very interesting. I just thumbed through it. It says, build a portable antenna mount. Another one is here, Clearing the Air, the Power of Phonetics. They've got some reviews of equipment, but they've got a number of things here like why you ought to participate in field day. So anyway, if you're not getting that, you can, as was said earlier tonight, get it in digital format. And one thing that any member is entitled to is either a hard copy of QST or a hard copy of On the Air. Either one you can choose and get the hard copy, and the other plus the National Contest Journal and the Experimenters magazine. Those other 3 publications, besides whichever one you want in hard copy, the other 3 you can have sent to you at no additional cost in digital format. So I encourage you to look at those, and it's part of your membership. So going on here now, what is old Marv trying to do as the section manager? And as I mentioned there in the beginning, I took office on April 1st. Well, one of the things I've tried very hard to do is improve communications with and to members. And I don't know whether everyone here tonight has availed themselves of the opportunity to get the North Carolina Section Manager newsletter. I produce a newsletter that is sent out electronically to those 3,000 members that are in the ARRL database. But that's even a peculiar thing. If you go back and you remember, I said there were 4,500 members of ARRL in North Carolina. Well, 1,500 of the members that are members of ARRL have not availed themselves of the opportunity to get various information from ARRL. So how do you get the section manager newsletter as well as the division director and vice director newsletter? If you go and log in on ARRL.org, and up at the top where your name appears slightly to the right of center on the top line, underneath that it says edit my profile. And if you edit your profile, if you click on that, you will get the opportunity to choose a number of things that you may or may not want to receive by email. One would be the section manager newsletter. Other things would be like contest announcements, satellite information, Keplerian elements, a number of things that have that are of interest to different people. But a lot of people have said at Hamfest, gee, I never knew you could get that stuff. So part of what I'm trying to do is to highlight the fact that in addition to trying to getting more information out to those that are interested, I'm trying to get more people signed up to get the information that you can get by editing my profile. So what else are we doing? Well, Susan Langley Jones over in Cary has been the webmaster for the NCARRL webpage. And I'm embarrassed to say that much of the information on that webpage is outdated. And it's not Susan Jones's fault, because she posts the information that the section manager gives her. And there hadn't been much updating of that. And I might add that, again, just telling it like it is, if you had been looking for a section manager newsletter, there were only 3 produced since 2019. So there had been a drop off in interest in getting a newsletter produced. And since April 1, I've sent out 8 of them. Okay. To do, which is has an interest. Thursday night, beautiful night, and we were in a town park, and everybody was 6 feet away, but I gave a talk similar to this one in person, but it really hasn't been feasible to go to many club meetings, certainly no Hamfest because there haven't been any, and but I have done electronic visits with 10 clubs now. And so I'm trying to get the word out that ARRL is alive and well. Another thing we're doing is trying to revitalize the Tar Heel net. And as I mentioned, Wendell Field, that was his name, W4AJT, he was one of the founders of the Tar Heel Emergency Net in 1947 and maintained checking in to that Tar Heel net continuously every night from 1947 until he went into hospital shortly before he passed away at the age of 100. But unfortunately, there had not been net control stations for much of the last 2 years. They hadn't been filled. There still is no net manager. And when people would come up on 3923 kilohertz at 7:30 in the evening, there was often no net control, and people would say, gee, I guess there's no Tar Heel emergency net anymore. But one of the things that we're trying to do to revitalize it is on the first Monday night of each month at 7:30, Virginia Ensor, NC4VA, who is in charge of Central Carolina Skywarn, and she gets her interest in weather legitimately. Her father worked for the National Weather Service, and so Virginia has quite an interest in weather. So on the first Monday of each month, she gives a topical presentation about weather. Last week, I want to say she talked about hail. Previously, she had talked about hurricanes and lightning. And so every first Monday of the month, she will be there talking about some interesting aspect of weather. On the second Monday of the month, such as this one, no, this is the third Monday. But anyway, the second Monday of the month, we have assigned to the section manager. The third Monday of each month, Bill Maureen N2COP appears on and operates from Wilmington and answers questions from members across the state about what's going on with ARRL. On the fourth Monday of each month, we have engaged Mr. Greg Hauser from North Carolina Emergency Management. Greg is a ham, but his job is statewide interoperability coordinator, and he will begin this month on the fourth Monday giving a talk about how he would like to bring more involvement from ham radio into the MCOM unit, ESF2 in the ICS world, into ECF2 to bring more ham radio participation into that. So value-added content. Another thing we're trying to do, as I'm going to do right now, urging ham radio clubs across the state to do everything they can to recruit new hams and to encourage and mentor others to upgrade. And one of the things that, if they do have a meeting in August, the high school science teachers have an association, and I plan to be at that meeting, if there is a meeting, to encourage the high school science teachers. And I'm going to make a bold offer to them that if any high school science teacher wants help, there will be a local club that will help them get a group together to form perhaps a high school amateur radio club, or at least to teach the high school science teacher so that he can or she can organize a club. So that's what I'm trying to do as your section manager. Now, what can you do? Well, it's obvious. You can recruit new hams, mentor others to upgrade. You might want to consider, I visited with the Shelby Amateur Radio Club, and they said, you know, we buy 2 or 3 books, and we put them in the library at each of the high schools in Cleveland County. You might want to consider that, or a subscription to QST and put it in the library where people might just wander around and pick up an interest in amateur radio because they saw something while they were in the library. And again, you might want to consider reaching out to a high school science teacher near you're in Winston and Forsyth County and try to get a school club going. Maybe offer a technician class focused just on school students. Now, here's a discussion point that has gotten a lot of interest in the last week or two. The section managers across the country, there's 71 of them, and they have met on video meetings. And one of the things we've been kicking around is how to get more young people or more people on the air, because we know that half of those technicians don't get on the air. Well, a section manager said, well, you know, our club got a deal. We bought 5 Bowfangs for $100, and everybody that took a test and joined our club, we gave them a Bowfang that was programmed so that the night that they took the test, they could actually get on the air the next day once they got their call sign from the FCC. Now, something that we do up here in the high country maybe would be useful in other parts of the state. There is, once again, maybe after coronavirus rules change, they have an emergency fest. All of the fire departments in Watauga County, the medic, the highway patrol, the sheriff's department, the bomb squad, the helicopters, all of those departments converge at Appalachian State in a big parking lot. And it's a huge, huge draw for young kids that want to see fire trucks and be able to use a fire extinguisher and see Smokey Bear and so on. And we have a tent there at the Emergency Fest and give out literature. And we've gotten a couple of hams and a couple of parents involved in amateur radio just because they thought that, well, you know, maybe I would like to know more about that. So that's what you guys can do. Now, ARRL board members, and I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little bit, but now if you go back and remember, I said that those technicians, half of them don't get on the air, and those that answered the question as to why they got a license, they said they wanted to be involved in MCOM. So ARRL has been pushing the FCC to give technicians voice privileges on 80 and 40 meters. Now, why 80 and 40 meters? And the answer to that is because that's where between 3,900 and 4,000 kilohertz and between 7,200 and 7,300 kilohertz, that's where the majority of the ARES nets, emergency nets, are located. And ARRL feels as though if they got HF privileges for technicians, it would draw more of them into being interested in operating. Another thing that the ARRL is working on is a new band plan that is hoped to cure conflicts between CW, single sideband voice, and WinLink operators. Presently, WinLink is only allowed in a very narrow segment of the HF bands. And well, and I may even have to clarify that. There are some people who operate CW and or voice in close proximity to wideband like WinLink systems and complain, each group complains about the other. And so there's a proposal before the FCC to specify a subband interfering with CW operators. The next thing ought to be very familiar. I don't know, are you still hearing me? I just got something up on the screen saying my internet was unstable. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to the slide, resume attempts to pass the Amateur Radio Parity Act. And many of you probably know that the Amateur Radio Parity Act was an effort by ARRL to get the FCC to treat amateur radio antennas on the same basis as satellite and outdoor TV antennas. The satellite industry, going all the way back when there were these, 4-meter wide satellite dishes that homeowner associations generally frowned upon. And even though the dishes are much smaller now, the satellite people and the over-the-air broadcasters got their heads together and got the FCC to preempt using the federal authority of a rule which is lower, the pecking order is Constitution, federal laws, federal rules and regulations, state laws, and then other certain kinds of things that fall under federal jurisdiction because of interstate commerce. So ARRL tried for 5 years to get the Amateur Radio Parity Act passed and almost made it. In 2018, before the Congress adjourned, at the end of the session, the House of Representatives passed it unanimously by a voice vote with no objection. It went to the Senate, and Senator Nelson from Florida said, "I object." Now, coincidentally, and you may have never heard of the Association of America Homeowner Associations. That's a lot of A's in a name, but there is a national trade group that represents POAs and HOAs across the country. And they were the largest contribution they made to any politician in the 2018 election was Senator Nelson in Florida. And he said, I object. The homeowners in Florida do not want this law passed. Now, what would the law have done? The law would not have given amateur radio operators wholesale exemption from restrictive covenants in the deeds that they, for their property in a subdivision. It would have, however, required the homeowners association to make a reasonable accommodation for an antenna. Well, now, what is a reasonable accommodation? Does that mean I could put a 200-foot tower up in my front yard with a strobe light? I'm sure neighbors would object, okay? What is reasonable? Is a 50-foot antenna reasonable? Is it visually shielded so that neighbors can't see it from the street, as was said earlier? What is a reasonable accommodation? And if a homeowners association refuses to negotiate in good faith, then it would have given amateur radio a legitimate means for asking for a review of that decision. Well, the bill did not pass. Now, what ARRL did, which was very controversial, was they fired their lawyer and they fired their lobbyist, and they did nothing. So from January 2019 to today, nothing has been done formally to get the Amateur Radio Parity Act reintroduced. So there's a number of people that are mad at ARRL because the critics say, you almost had it. Why did you stop it? Why did you break up the team? Why did you not follow through and try to do it again? And there's no good answer to that question because ARRL board hasn't answered it. So they also had some major personnel decisions. They got to hire a new CEO because the second thing they did besides firing the lawyer and the lobbyist was they fired Howard Michaels, who was the CEO. And they have not had a CEO, but Barry Shelley, who is the chief financial officer for ARRL, who had retired to South Carolina, they put him on a contract, and he is interim CEO. Some of you may have heard of Mike Corey, who was the emergency communications manager or some title like that at ARRL headquarters. He resigned in February of 2019. And so I think that's 16 months ago, and the ARRL board hasn't filled that position yet. And then finally, the thing I'll say just in passing is transparency issues. There are a number of people who are critical of ARRL and the way they run things. And if you went to the ARRL webpage and wanted to find out about the agenda for the Thursday, actually it's Friday, there will be a board meeting. And everybody knows there's going to, well, everybody on the board knows there's a board meeting. And it's been kind of hinted that there's a board meeting and it's going to be done on Zoom, but there's no agenda that has been released to the members. There's no committee reports that have been released, even though they're going to discuss those things on Friday. So that's what the critics are saying is a lack of transparency. Now, okay, so who are your board members? Bud Hipsley, who lives near Roanoke, W2RU, and Bill Maureen, N2COP. The vice director has no vote. The ARRL board, there are 15 divisions, and the only time the vice director gets a vote is if the director cannot attend or is involved in a matter involving himself or herself. Otherwise, the vice director is kind of like, I don't know what word you want to use, somebody said backbencher, somebody, there just in case, just in case. And if there's a vacancy in the director, then the vice director automatically moves up. Okay, so in February of 2019, and so I think that's 16 months ago, and the ARRL board hasn't filled that position yet. And then finally, the thing I'll say just in passing is transparency issues. There are a number of people who are critical of ARRL and the way they run things. And if you went to the ARRL webpage and wanted to find out about the agenda for the Thursday, actually it's Friday, there will be a board meeting. And everybody knows there's going to, well, everybody on the board knows there's a board meeting. And it's been kind of hinted that there's a board meeting and it's going to be done on Zoom, but there's no agenda that has been released to the members. There's no committee reports that have been released, even though they're going to discuss those things on Friday. So that's what the critics are saying is a lack of transparency. Now, okay, so who are your board members? Bud Hipsley, who lives near Roanoke, W2RU, and Bill Maureen, N2COP. The vice director has no vote. The ARRL board, there are 15 divisions, and the only time the vice director gets a vote is if the director cannot attend or is involved in a matter involving himself or herself. Otherwise, the vice director is kind of like, I don't know what word you want to use. Somebody said backbencher, somebody, there just in case, just in case. And if there's a vacancy in the director, then the vice director automatically moves up. Okay, so now what is my job? Hard for you maybe to believe, but my job really is to listen. And I haven't done much of that tonight. So my question to you now is, what are your questions and comments? Because if I can help you get an answer to something, I will do that. So it's your turn to talk and my turn to listen and take a sip of water. So have at it.
Well, Marv, this is Don, WS4NC. I'll start out. First off, I didn't mean to embarrass you. The newsletter was running.
No. I shouldn't have put. Well, when I was getting nominated or seeking the position, there were a number of people who didn't know me at all, and so I tried to assure them that just because I was from Boone, I might actually know something.
Well, I apologize if I put too much.
Okay.
I've made a number of lists here. Youth. We've had a number of young people in the club. Youngest passed his license 6.5, was an extra at 7.5. By the way, I sent that along with a photo and a press release to the league and got an email back from the president who said something like, well, I don't think he's the youngest. What's the big deal? And that offended me. We have trouble getting enough young people at any one time to get what I would call critical mass. They sort of feed off of each other.
Yes.
And I think the proposal to get the technician licenses, HF privileges, would really help in that regard quite a bit. And I would love to hear any suggestions about getting more involved. We tried to get somewhat involved with Boy Scouts a little bit, but there's just not the interest there used to be years ago. We have so much to compete against. One thing that this club does is if someone does come and take their test, we make them a member of the club for a year. You come and take a renewal. Or not a renewal, but an upgrade test. We make you a member for another year. So you can spell that out for 3 years, and especially for kids. In the old days, when we did a newsletter by mail, it was like $1 to mail that, close to it, 70, 80 cents with printing and postage. Today, everybody does this by, wants it online, which is one of the reasons I went to full color this time. It doesn't, it uses a lot of ink to print that out in black and white, and some people did print it, but I think fewer. If you talk to the newbies, new people, younger people today, they don't even want paper. They like this online. I'm old school, so I don't follow that. One of the objections that I've heard most often about ARRL membership is the cost. And I think it would be, and I don't know the right people to bring this up to, but I think it would be a good idea for maybe the ARRL to consider something like that for new people, and also to get us a list. I mean, it would be like even a month or two without the paper version, because the cost would be minimal.
Well, and you can subscribe to all of those 4 magazines for less than the 40 digitally. You can get all of them, I believe, at less than $49 per year.
Okay. I was not aware of that. That's a recent change.
You might want to look into that, and I may not be right. It may be that, I heard a discussion about why they want to have a print copy is not just because they like to have it on the shelf and, have it so you can pull it out and look at it, but the advertising rates, there's an audit bureau of circulation or something like that, that is some kind of trade group that suggests or approves of advertising rates for publications based on paid subscriptions. And the paid subscription evidently is tied in some way to whether they actually produce something in print.
I'm familiar with what you're talking about, and I had not considered that. That is an issue, and that's beyond my pay grade. On the library, this club, it's been quite a few years now since we did this, but we bought a copy of every league periodical that was appropriate and gave it to the Forsyth County Public Library. That is past due to be upgraded, and they've also closed the library for several years to rebuild the building. I'm not sure of the status of that. Had never considered the high schools. That is a really good point.
Well,
and we should look into that. I have a bunch of other things here. I'll send you an email.
okay.
Really appreciate you being here tonight.
Well, and I'm not trying to chastise any group, but I do hear, well, what could we do? And so I tried to put out some suggestions that are, I've heard other groups mention, and so it may or may not be suitable for any particular club. For example, a small club might be struggling financially just to pay an electric bill for a repeater site or an internet drop or whatever. So not every club is the same in terms of their membership or the type of people that are involved. And I mean by that, some clubs aren't interested in young people. They just their focus is contesting. And there's nothing wrong with being a contester, just like there's nothing wrong being focused in MCOM. But some people really get more enjoyment out of, certificates and such as that. And young people, as you correctly point out, there's so many other ways for people to communicate to others around the world that the novelty of ham radio or shortwave listening isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, shortwave in particular is sad, and I'm sorry to hear that. We do try and foster a lot of different interests, and we're a large enough group that we can do that. But even in that regard, it is a problem. there's so many different interests. Again, that critical mass term comes to mind. You got to get enough of any one group to have an interest in it. And yes, we've been very active in contesting. We've also been very active with our repeaters, and we have a lot of people. And the membership issue is declining. We have around 900 hams here in Forsyth County, and I think we represent about 200 or something over 200 by the time we count our family members. So
I'd like to ask a question, if I may.
Yes,
You were
sir.
talking earlier about field day. And do you all have a feeling as to whether the temporary rules for 2020 were good or bad? That has got a lot of controversy still going as to whether, well, it kind of goes back to the question, is field day an emergency communications exercise or is it a contest? And it's different things to different people. But some felt that the 1D and being able for 1D stations to talk to and get points for talking to other 1D stations, that actually gave more people a greater opportunity to be on the air than would have been the case if, like say the Watauga Club, for example, if we had 20 people out there at a fire station where we have lately been setting up, and they have nice lawn and we can put up antennas and do all sorts of things, and it's got nice facilities and a kitchen, and it's really nice to operate there. It's not really roughing it, but if we had 20 people there, as we have had in the last several years, about 5 people would get to operate more than about an hour. The rest of the people would have a short time where somebody else is really into, making as many contacts. So our experience this year was more of our club members got on the air and spent more hours operating this year than ever had done that in the past. Now, on the other hand, there are people who are saying, well, it was those 1 kilowatt stations that were operating operating from home that made it so difficult to get through on pileups. And that so-and-so says, well, my score was hurt because they should have a restriction that nobody, and how would you enforce it? That it'd be kind of the honor system. Nobody should be operating with more than 150 watts on field day. That wouldn't be, I see a thumb up there from Van. Another thumb up that, you wouldn't take a kilowatt out in the field in a disaster and set up there. That maybe field day ought to have more of an emphasis on emergency communications in difficult situations. That would be one thing. Or if you're going to allow ham radio operators to operate from home, maybe, more of a differential if they operate with emergency power like solar or battery or whatever from home. So I'd be curious what you all have as an opinion about that question.
If I can address that, we take field day very seriously. We run a 9A operation. Last year, our total scores of all stations, we were 9th in the country. It is multiple things to multiple people, and it to overemphasize the emergency aspect neglects the other, and that's part of the thing that's non-inclusive. And you're right that we do have a lot of older members, and it's hard on a group of us old people to get out there and put up 11 or 12 antennas to run a 9A operation.
I'm in my mid-70s, and there's some people who call me the kid.
Yeah, well, I'm 67.
You're the kid.
I'm the kid, yeah. And I was recently 50 feet up a tower, and that just about killed me. For someone who was 90, I was the kid there. I think it was great this year in that we were able to do things from home for those who wanted to do it. There were people, I worked a couple of 9A operations. I know one up in Virginia. So I think that allowed more participation, I think. So I think it was a very good thing. And one additional thing, and then I'll be quiet here. I do appreciate your newsletter. I missed it, and I'm aware that Carl had a lot of issues going on in his life, and I understand that. But I'm glad to see it back.
But if you're a section manager, there are certain things you have to do because you have to do.
Yeah, but you also have family, and family issues often take a lot of time. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight.
Okay.
And I'll be quiet and allow someone else to jump in.
Any other comments?
I would like to say, Marv, if with regard to sponsoring a school club, that's something I always wanted to do. And I can't speak for the board, but I feel sure that the board would go along with it. But the difficulty for me has been finding a teacher who would be willing to do that. But I can say that our club would probably, in all probability, would be glad to sponsor a club, provide equipment, antenna, and know-how. So if you do get to meet with your science teachers, and there are any in Winston-Salem that would be interested, we would be glad to talk to them.
Thank you for that comment, because my purpose in going there would be to try to open a door for clubs all across the state to have, the high school science teacher in their particular county school system to know about ham radio and to have a list of what the local club is, who to contact at the local club. So I can't talk to all the science teachers except in some kind of setting where they're meeting, but I can talk to them and say that ham radio operators are passionate, they enjoy it, they had great it's had great impacts in many instances on their careers. I mean, all the astronauts are ham radio operators. It's not like staying at the Holiday Inn Express that if you get the ham radio license, you're going to be able to get the Nobel Prize. But all the Nobel Prize winners in physics were ham radio operators. So if we can get more people more young people into what used to be, I finally got used to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and now it's STEAM, which includes art in there. And different people have opinions about art, but for tonight, I'd settle for STEM, even if we can't get everybody to push behind STEAM.
That's true. Another, by the way, the International Space Station is going over Winston-Salem tonight at 10:48. I believe it's west southwest, and will be visible for 6 minutes, which is really most of the time when they go over, they're just here for a minute or whatever. But supposedly you'll be able to see them for 6 minutes tonight. I just want to mention one more thing, that if it weren't for the pandemic, I would have brought this up. I saw somewhere in the United States, and I don't recall where I saw it, but a club put a ham radio display in a library, and we've got a major library in town. We could put a ham radio display up in the library for a month. And I think that would be something we could do. Like I say, the pandemic is unfortunately holding back. We've got a lot of projects on the back burner that I don't know when we'll get them complete.
Put a damper on a lot of activities that, on the Oxcom training, for example, and I didn't mention this, but Virginia Enzor and Carl Bowman and I are Oxcom trainers. And all of that is in abeyance. You know, we have the funding, we have invitations from counties to have an Oxcom class in their county that they will provide the space and all this, and we can't do it because you can't get the 30 people together or even 20 people together. Most places don't really have a place where you could have 20 people 6 feet apart and have internet and have, you know, good visual equipment. Like, for example, Thursday night, that was an outdoor meeting over in West Jefferson, but you couldn't do a projector and you couldn't do a lot of things that you would need to have to do an effective class.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any more questions for Marv?
I would like to get a comment.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Dick?
I'd like to get a comment on what ARRL is looking at concerning testing, considering most of our VE tests are shut down. We're not going to increase our ranks at all if we can't do any testing.
Well, their ARRL has now evidently done some remote testing, and the Malin Club, which is a W5YI VEC club, is doing remote testing, video. You know, there's one person with the individual who's taking a test, or they're online, or I'm not quite sure how it's done, but they have been giving tests on Tuesday morning and afternoon, Tuesday and Thursday, for the last 3 weeks. And they have, I don't know, given, I don't know, something like 25 tests.
Is there a coordination? I mean, you know, if you're next door to W5YI, that would be great. But what if we had a candidate here in North Carolina? Is there a coordination between them and us that would allow us to say, hey, we've got Don here who is just impervious to disease, so he's going to go and be the monitor, and we're going to give this test to this kid, or maybe these 2 kids.
No. What I would suggest, if I may, I'll send Don some information about remote testing. But I do know that there are not everybody is going to Spruce Pine to take the test. Some people are taking the test online. I mean, video wise.
Yeah.
And I know that it's being done, but I haven't participated in one, so I will get that information and send it to Don or to Sam or to whomever you want me to send it to.
Oh, send it to Don. He can publish it.
Okay. Okay.
Dale is our VEC guy, and he and I have discussed it. I don't want to get into any political issues here, but our VEC has the one who coordinates us has said there will be no testing.
Right.
This is over.
And that's
and Dale and I have become certified with ARRL since then, and we're working on trying to work out something.
And it really, you hit the nail on the head there. The VEC determines what the policy is for all of that VEC's teams.
And that's really where we're on a hold up here. And I may have spoken a little out of turn on that, but Dale and I have gone ahead and got certified by ARRL, but we've got to get someone certified by ARRL to give the test, and we don't have that yet. So we're going to have to jump through a few more hoops yet to do that. But it's been discussed that we might hold this. We've even got a location where we could, and we do have a backlog. We've had as many as 15, 17 people at a testing session before.
And Virginia Enzor, who lives over in Cary, told me that there is a group that some of the people around Raleigh are affiliated with, not W5YI, but they're doing remote testing. And then there are some clubs that I have heard about where what they're doing is drive-up testing, which everybody, they go to like a Kmart parking lot, which is empty, and they have, and it's obviously got to be good weather, and people take the test in their car and in the exam. And all I can say is, despite the coronavirus restrictions, there are some tests being given.
I understand Greensboro has given some, and I think there were some south of us. I'm not sure which club did it.
Thomasville got off one because our friend Jeremy Brown was able to upgrade to general the other day.
Yeah, Thomasville. They usually send me notices, but they didn't send me notice in time. The testing had already passed by the time the newsletter was done.
Right.
So I didn't include anything about it.
That's the way we got to grow the ranks, folks.
Yeah, and we got to get kids involved, young people involved. I'm ashamed to say, for me, it was 1963, so it's been a long time.
Hey, I'll make a comment.
Sure.
Yeah, my name's Keith, Ka4JAH. I am a VE with the High Point Club, and we did test this past weekend and the previous 2 weeks prior in Greensboro. We're doing it outside in a picnic shelter, if you will, at a church. They're limiting the amount of tests to 7 testees and requiring a mask and social distancing and that type of thing. It's worked out very well. We probably will be doing a test in High Point, assuming that the church in High Point will allow us on July 25th. And the next testing session in Greensboro will be August the 8th.
Keith, are you ARRL affiliated? Is it?
I'm W4VEC.
W4VEC. Okay. I had VE certification years ago, and I haven't had it I haven't kept it up in more years than I care to
Well, I'm both an ARRL and a West Cars with Norman Harrell out in Asheville. Okay. But the occasion hasn't presented itself lately for me to be involved with a test session.
Well, I was just wanted to make a comment that I thought that's something that, and I applaud Keith and his group for doing that.
I'll get some information about some additional locations or groups and use it as you see fit or throw it away. It's up to you.
We don't do that.
Is there anything else I can answer about what we're trying to do and some of the struggles? Everybody says, well, you know, I long for the opportunity to get back and have a cup of coffee with my friends or have a lunch meeting, you know, and see people. It's just not the same, even though, you know, well, it is good to be able to see people. That's better than just talking on the radio because you can see how people are faring and you know, with their general health and such as that. And you learn a lot more about what kind of stuff they have in their room because everybody gets to see what the backdrop is in their shack or wherever. So,
can you do anything about getting us some more sunspots so the bands will be a little better?
We're working on that. You know, that is a number of that. I think one of the things you can check off is to get a weekly space weather report. So you can see what the scores are for the sunspot activity and get. I think that every Thursday there's an update on the predicted sunspots for the next week.
Marv, this is Kent, K4HKE. Is there not an assistant section manager spot, or have you just not filled that?
I have not filled that. And in fact, that's going to be a topic in the next newsletter. which is coming out this weekend. I need help. That's going to be one of the headings. And people who know me will not dispute that I need help, but it may not be with ARRL matters. No, that's going to be a topic. In fact, I'd like to have 2 assistant section managers, one from the east and one from the west, or if I could find 3 people, east, central, and west, and do it kind of like the branches with state EM. So it's not that I want to be overly possessive of this. The interesting thing is the database for North Carolina ARRL is woefully outdated. And there's 183 names in the database for various positions, official relay station, emergency stations, section emergency coordinator, district emergency coordinator, and there are more names in the database than there are positions, and some of the people have passed away. And so part of my time is trying to clean that up so that, in fact, I talked to Danny Hampton earlier today, the section technical coordinator, and there are 7 names listed as his assistants, as technical specialists, and he only knew one of them. And, for a variety of reasons, a number of things fell through the cracks.
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
This is Dave, KC4 X-Ray.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you for your presentation tonight. I think it's been motivating and interesting, and I've really enjoyed it. And I wanted to comment on the ARRL, and I heard what Don said about his submission and the way they treated it. There's a guy on television that teaches golf, and one of the things he says at the end of his broadcast is, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting.
Yes.
And I think ARRL needs to take that to heart. And of course, I know they're probably going crazy and overwhelmed with issues, but if they keep doing what they're doing, such as treating people badly, they're going to continue to shrink their ranks until they just have to go out of business. Well, I hate to see that happen, but they need to read the tea leaves here and understand what's going on part of the time.
Well, ARRL policy says that field appointees should not criticize publicly decisions of the board. So, having said that, I think there's room for improvement.
Amen. Thank you.
I don't want to get fired in my 5th month, but maybe after 6 months.
Like I said, if they keep doing what they've been doing, they're going to keep getting what they've been getting. Bottoms up. Thank you.
Okay, well, I've enjoyed the opportunity to visit with you, and I hope I haven't wasted too much of your time tonight. And when the restrictions are lifted, I'd like to come down, visit with you. I have gone to your Hamfest at times in the past. I'd love to come down again when you start having Hamfests again, and I'll send Don my PowerPoint, and that has the names and addresses of the people to contact, my name, address, all of that is there, and feel free to write to me about anything that you think I could help on. And if it's not within my bailiwick, what I do is I pass it to Bill and Bud and say, this is a concern that has been expressed by a North Carolina ham. Perhaps you want to respond. And there was a interesting exchange about 2 weeks ago, just about the NTS stuff. And you know, I've learned, I'm not a traffic handler, but I've learned that there has been a split in the national traffic system, and it goes back to a kind of somebody trying to do good and getting ahead of ARRL headquarters staff, and because the person did good but got ahead of the headquarters staff, that person was removed from the traffic system appointment. And then that caused his friends and associates he worked with to get mad and split off and form another group. And hams, you know, the old thing is you get two hams together, you got three opinions. And so there are issues that are difficult issues to resolve, but somebody complained about the North Carolina traffic net, or one of the nets, and I discussed it, and I'm sure somebody here tonight knows Dave Roy, who is the section traffic manager and does, in my opinion, a good job. But I had to, out of fairness to the person who complained, pass that up the line. And so that got me involved in a kind of brouhaha about national traffic system and why there's two groups and why they don't get along. But so it's an interesting job, and I'll probably keep it for a while. Okay, I took a lot of your time, and so I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you, and I hope I get to do it again soon.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Yeah, we sure do. Thank you, Marv. And it was a very interesting presentation, and sounds like we need you up there in ARRL headquarters instead of.
I don't know. I don't know about that. It'd be like two cats in a bag.
Yeah. Stacy wanted to inquire what the starting pay was for the assistant position. I told her it was a satisfaction of a job well done. So,
Yep.
You know.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Okay. We're going to hang around after the meeting, Marv, but you're welcome. Or if you want to leave, of course, you know, that's up to you. But again, we appreciate your being with us tonight, and I know everybody enjoyed it. Okay. I see.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. I see that Dale is with us. Dale, do you want to give us a repeater report at this time?
Okay, sure. Sam, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. And Marv did a great job. I got in a little bit later. We had some other things to take care of, so pardon me on missing the initial report. Well, good news. The 4.7 is still up and running okay. Occasionally there's some information on interference, and I haven't heard it myself, but we'll try to look into that, or if anybody has more details on it, if they could send me an email, I appreciate it. In terms of the hospital situation, the 146.64 and 444.275 are hopefully still safe up in the penthouse. We haven't been able to visit that a while, but as the restrictions lift or it is safe to go up there, we'll go up there and hopefully make some changes. The Echolink for the 145.47 machine is still working okay. The Vagabond net uses that quite a bit, and as they've had to switch over from the 147.315 machine back to the 4.7 or vice versa, we'll try to change that as often as we can. So sometimes if you get in, it's not switched right away. It's just that we're not home, or we haven't been able to switch it because we're not aware of it. So other than that, we should be in good shape. If I go through testing, well, let me just see here. Are there any questions on the repeater at this point, or repeaters? Okay, haven't heard none. Sam, is it okay just talk a little bit about testing?
Sure.
Yeah, I thank Don and also Dick for bringing up that important subject with Marv. We're still kind of in a hold pattern right now. And as Don mentioned, Don and I have been certified with ARRL, and we've received some information, but not too much more than that as far as the direction. So I'm hoping, thanks to Don, WS4NC, if we get some information from Marv, we might be able to have some more insight going forward. And also appreciate the person from High Point, I forgot his name, that mentioned about testing. We do have a site identified. I have to check with the individual to see possibly in Louisville if we can use the church site for doing that. And of course, have some people that are comfortable getting out in an outdoor environment, which will be a little bit safer to test. So it's possible in the August timeframe, if we have some VEs, we can maybe try to do that, but it's still a little bit too early. And as the numbers keep climbing and climbing, we just got to try to make sure we're safe with the state and local regulations as well. So that's probably more than I wanted to say on that, but I don't want to take a lot of time. But any questions on testing? Okay, having heard none, thanks again, Sam, and everybody for hearing me out, and hopefully we'll have some good news on both fronts going forward, and hope everybody has a good summer. Back to you, Sam. And if I can give you a phone call later on, Sam, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, sure. Okay, we're running a little bit long. Does anybody have anything else tonight?
Sam, it's Harold.
Yes.
If anybody needs help submitting their field day results that hasn't done it, feel free to contact me. I'll be glad to help.
Okay.
Hey, Sam.
Yes.
Harry, I'm putting up on the website, probably in the next 5 minutes, links to the ARRL webpage with instructions on uploading, and then a further link, which is also on that first webpage, on going to the data upload area.
Okay. That'll be good. Thanks for doing that, Terry. Okay, anyone have anything else? Yes.
It's Keith, KA4JAH. I just wanted to put out David's email address. David's the head VE in the High Point area that handles the Greensboro High Point testing. If there's people in the area there in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County that would like to get testing, I'm sure he would be more than glad to accommodate them if they could contact him.
Okay.
His email address is AJ4TF. That's Alpha Juliet 4 Tango Foxtrot at ARRL.net. And like I said, I know for sure, unless something changes, there'll be a testing session in Greensboro on August the 8th. And he's trying to push through the testing session on High Point for July 25th. He's waiting to hear back from the church on that.
Okay. That sounds good. And can you tell me how to pronounce David's last name?
Yellow is best I can tell you.
Okay. I was just curious. David's a fine fellow. Okay, anything else? Okay, if there's nothing else, do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Harlan second.
I second.
Okay,
Everybody
Ron.
seconds.
So it's been fun. If you want to stick around, that'll be fine. Stick around and talk.
I don't want Jim to get out of here.
Anybody interested in the International Space Station? It's over Panama right now.
We'll rush right down there.
Look south.
What time is it due over Winston-Salem?
10:48, I believe.
Okay.
There's a better pass coming tomorrow night.
It's going to rise in 8 minutes, 34 seconds.
Wow. The 6-minute pass is long.
Yeah, tomorrow night at 10 o'clock is an even better pass
Looks like max elevation is going to be 77 degrees.
About the comet. Anybody heard about the comet?
They had a little burb on tonight.
At this point, it should be up in the evening, right at sunset. I think it's off in the west somewhere.
Another question: has anybody worked on 144.420? 2 meters, 144.420. There's apparently a repeater up in Yadkinville that's linked to 10 meters. And I've been listening to that for about 3 weeks now, and it's quite interesting. I've been able to talk across all across.
I was not aware of that.
What's the tone for that?
No tone, no offset.
Say again.
No tone, no offset.
Nice.
The gentleman,
What was the frequency?
the frequency is 144.420. 144.420. The gentleman that owns that repeater, his call sign is Whiskey Alpha 4 Papa X-Ray Victor, WA4PXV. He's got a pretty nice QRZ page that tells you all about it. He's got several repeaters up there apparently setting up on the mountain. I remind everybody while I'm talking, we do a 2 meter single sideband activity night on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. on 144.200. And we also do a 6 meter single sideband activity night on Sunday nights at 8:30 p.m. on 50.155. So look forward to having somebody come join us.
Well, Don, Dale, I'm a ARRL VE as well, if you need.
I am too. I just sent Dale a note about that.
Okay, well, that makes 4 of us now.
And I am, and also Mike Vernon, and I think most Bob and Mary. I think most everyone has their ARRL VE credentials also.
So that makes a pretty good group of us then. We have enough to pull off the testing session.
I'm not sure if we can, I mean, is there something that you have to change to switch from one VEC to another? Or you just have to have the materials?
You have to have the materials and the blessing. And you have to have someone who manages those materials, I understand. And I think for the league, I think you have to have participated in testing under somebody for like, I'd have to go back and reread the manual, but I think it was like 3 sessions before we can hold our own and get someone to chair it. And I may stand to be corrected on that. And I see we got M0USER in the background, Harold.
Yeah.